Hey guys, tonight we slip into the cockpit of a World War II fighter plane, the wind howling past as you grip the stick, your heart thumping like a drum in your chest. Picture it. You're high above the English Channel, clouds streaking by, the horizon a blur of blue and grey. Your Spitfire hums, a beast of metal and rivets, vibrating under your gloved hands. The sky's alive with enemy fighters could scream out of the sun any second. And, let's be honest, you probably won't survive this if you don't keep your wits sharp. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a fighter pilot in 1942, and the cockpit is your world now. It's a cramped, rattling cage of dials, levers and switches, smelling of oil, leather and sweat. The seat's hard, the harness digs into your shoulders, and your boots rest on pedals that feel like they're fighting you. Outside, the propellers a spinning blur, chopping the air with a throaty roar that drowns out everything except your own ragged breathing. You're 20, maybe 22, barely old enough to buy a beer back home, but here you are, entrusted with a machine that costs more than your family's house. The Spitfire's sleek, a marvel of engineering, but it's also finicky on wrong move, and you're spiralling toward the ground, no questions asked. Your mission today is a dawn patrol over the channel, hunting German fighters or escorting bombers. The briefing officer, a grizzled type with a mustache like a wire brush, barked your orders an hour ago. Climb to 20,000 feet, watch for Messerschmitts, and don't get cocky. You've heard the stories pilots who got too bold and ended up as fireballs in a field. The Battle of Britain, 2 years back in 1940, proved the RAF could hold its own, downing over 1,700 Luftwaffe planes. But the cost was steep. Over 500 British pilots didn't come home. You're not a statistic yet, but the thought lingers like a bad smell. Your oxygen mask chafes, and the cockpit's freezing, your breath fogging the canopy. You adjust your goggles, the lenses scratched from too many missions. The altimeter ticks up 5,000 feet, 10,000, 15,000. Your ears pop, and the world below shrinks to patchwork fields and glinting rivers. Up here, it's just you, the sky, and the gnawing fear that a speck on the horizon could be your last fight. You've got a photo of your sweetheart tucked in your jacket, a lucky charm you hope works better than the last guy's did. Historians still argue whether the Spitfire's elliptical wings gave it a real edge over the Messerschmitt's sharper handling. Some say it was pilot skill, not design, that won the day. Either way, you're in one now, and it feels like an extension of your body, responsive but unforgiving. A quirky tidbit? Some pilots swore by taping a mirror to the cockpit to spot enemies sneaking up behind. Hardly standard issue, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You check your own makeshift mirror, a shard of glass taped to the panel, and it's fogged up. Typical. You scan the sky, squinting against the sun. Your radio crackles, but it's just static and garbled voices, nothing clear yet. Your stomach churns, not from fear, though there's plenty of that, but from the lousy breakfast. Powdered eggs and toast that tasted like cardboard. You joke to yourself that the RAF's real secret weapon is making pilots too grumpy to die. They want to live just to complain about the food. The thought makes you smirk, but then you spot a shadow at 3 o'clock. Friend or foe? Your thumb hovers over the trigger, pulse racing. This is it. The moment where everything you've trained for either saves you or doesn't. The sky's your battlefield. Vast and empty but crowded with death. You bank left, the plane tilting like a bird, and you feel the G-forces press you into the seat. It's exhilarating and terrifying, like riding a bicycle down a cliff. You've heard older pilots talk about the merge, that split second when you and an enemy lock eyes through the gun sights. You haven't been there yet, but you know it's coming. Another joke bubbles up. If you get shot down, at least you won't have to eat those eggs again. You chuckle, but it's hollow. The shadow's closer now, and your training kicks in. You're not just a kid anymore, you're a hunter. and the hunt's on. You're back in 1940 now, not soaring over the channel yet, but stuck on the ground, slogging through the relentless grind of flight school. The airfield's a muddy mess, surrounded by barbed wire and the constant drone of engines. You're a raw recruit, barely out of your teens, and the RAF's got you running ragged, trying to turn you into a pilot before the Luftwaffe turns you into a memory. The training base is a sprawl of Nissan huts, damp and cold, with instructors who bark orders like they're auditioning for a drill sergeant role. Your days start at dawn, and by dusk, you're so tired you could sleep standing up, perfect for tonight's sleepy vibe, right? The cockpit of a tiger moth trainer feels like a bicycle with wings, flimsy and wobbly as you taxi across the grass. You're learning the basics, takeoffs, landings, and how not to puke when the instructor throws the plane into a spin just to see if you'll crack. The moth's open cockpit lets the wind slap your face, and your scarf flaps like a flag in a storm. You're bundled in a flight suit 2 sizes too big, smelling of mildew, but it's better than freezing at 5,000 feet. The instrument panel is a puzzle altimeter, airspeed, compassol dancing needles you're supposed to tame. One wrong glance, and you're upside down, praying the instructor doesn't notice. A mainstream fact. The RAF's training program was brutal but effective, churning out over 50,000 pilots by 1945, many of whom learned to fly in under 6 months. You're one of them, or trying to be. The instructors are merciless, weeding out anyone who can't handle the stress. You've seen guys wash out, sent back to ground duties with shame in their eyes. You're determined not to be one of them, but the spins are a nightmare. The plane drops, the world twists, and your stomach lurches like it's trying to escape. Recover or die, the instructor growls through the speaking tube. No pressure, right? A quirky tidbit. Some trainees swore they saw ghosts in the clouds during solo flights. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was the RAF's awful tea-playing tricks. You haven't seen any spectres yet, but after a dozen spins, you're not ruling it out. Historians still argue whether the rush training saved the RAF or cost live-scramming years of skill into months, meant some pilots hit the front lines half-baked. You feel that pressure every time you stall the plane, the nose dipping as the engine sputters. You pull back, sweat beading under your helmet, and the moth levels out. Barely. Your classmates are a mixed bag-cocky types who think they're the next Douglas Bader, and quiet ones who just want to survive. You're somewhere in the middle, cracking jokes to keep the fear at bay. Like when the instructor makes you practice a forced landing in a field, and you quip, "Good thing I brought my running shoes." It gets a laugh, but inside you're terrified of pancaking into a hedgerow. Another joke comes when you're paired with a guy who keeps mixing up left and right. Hope you're better with a joystick than a map. He glares, but you're all in this together, bonded by shared misery. The days blur lectures on aerodynamics, navigation by dead reckoning, and endless drills. You learn to read the wind by the ripple on a puddle, to gauge altitude by the feel of the seat. Nights are spent in the hut, scribbling notes by candlelight, your bunkmates snoring like a malfunctioning engine. You dream of flying, but it's not Glamorous, it's you, stalling over a forest, waking in a cold sweat. Another light moment. The cook serves mystery stew, and you joke it's probably made from old flight manuals. No one laughs, they're too busy choking it down. By the end of training, you're not a natural, but you're competent. You can land without bouncing, navigate without a map, mostly, and maybe, just maybe, survive your first mission. The final test looms, a solo cross-country flight. You climb into the moth, the engine coughing like it's got a cold. The instructor gives you a nod, not a smile. You taxi, take off, and the ground falls away. For the first time, it's just you and the sky. It's terrifying, but it's also freedom. You're not a pilot yet, but you're close. The war's waiting, and so's that Spitfire from before. Remember that cockpit chaos? It's coming. You're out of flight school now, the ink barely dry on your pilot's wings, and you're tossed into the heart of a fighter squadron. The airfield's a hive of noise engines snarling, boots crunching on gravel, and the distant thump of anti-aircraft guns. You're stationed somewhere in southern England. 1,000 942, where the grass is perpetually damp and the skies are moody grey. Your new home is a cluster of huts and hangars, the air thick with the smell of fuel and cigarette smoke. You're no longer a lone trainee, you're part of a squadron, a ragtag family of pilots who live and die together. The mess hall's your sanctuary, where you swap stories, fears, and the occasional bad joke over lukewarm tea. The squadron's a mix of characters veterans with haunted eyes, rookies like you trying to act tough, and a few eccentrics who seem to thrive on the chaos. Your flight leader, a lanky guy named Tom, has a laugh like a foghorn and a habit of quoting Shakespeare before missions. He's survived 2 years of dogfights, which makes him either lucky or a wizard. You're billeted in a drafty hut, your bunk a thin mattress that creaks with every move. The walls are plastered with pin-ups and letters from home, and someone scrawled, "Don't die," above the door, charming. A mainstream fact. RAF squadrons were tight-knit units, often with fewer than 20 pilots, and losses hit hard by 1,942. The average pilot's survival rate was measured in weeks. You feel that weight every time a chair stays empty at dinner. The mess hall's where you learn the unwritten rules. Never talk about a missing pilot until 48 hours pass, and always buy a round if you make it back. You're learning fast, but the learning curve's brutal. One night, Tom slaps your shoulder and says, "Kid, you'll either get good or get dead." You laugh, but it's forced. A quirky tidbit. Some squadrons adopted bizarre mascots like a goat named Percival, who supposedly brought luck if you rubbed his horns before a mission. Your squadron's got a scruffy terrier named Spit, who barks at every takeoff like he's cheering you on. You give Spit a pat, half joking that he's your co-pilot. Historians still argue whether squadron morale was more about camaraderie or sheer stubbornness. Did you fight for each other or just to prove you could? Either way, you're here, and the bonds are real. You share cigarettes, swap stories about girls back home, and tease the guy who snores like a buzzsaw. The mess hall's a stage for your 3 daily jokes. First, there's the time you catch a rookie trying to polish his propeller with boot polish. "Mate, it's not a dress shoe," you quip, and the table roars. Later, when Tom recounts a near miss with a Focke-Wulf, you chime in, "What? Did you wave and invite him for tea?" The laughter's a lifeline, cutting through the tension. Your third joke comes when Spit the Terrier steals a sausage off your plate. Blimey, he's a better thief than the Luftwaffe. It's silly, but it keeps you sane. Days are filled with briefings, card games, and endless waiting for the scramble siren. You learn everyone's quirks. The guy who sings off, key to calm his nerves. The one who carries a rabbit's foot he swears saved him from a crash. Nights are for letters or staring at the ceiling, wondering if you'll see tomorrow. You're starting to fit in, but every mission's a reminder you're one mistake from being a name on a wall. The veterans teach you trick show to spot a glint of enemy wings, how to save fuel by gliding. You're not just a pilot now, you're a brother, and that's both a comfort and a burden. You lie in your bunk, listening to the wind rattle the hut. Spit's curled up nearby, snoring softly. You think about Homimum's roast. Your kid sisters laugh, but it feels a world away. Tomorrow's another mission, and you'll be back in that Spitfire, the one from that chaotic cockpit. Remember that shadow on the horizon? It's still out there, waiting. For now, you close your eyes, the mess hall's laughter echoing in your mind, and try to dream of something other than war. You're awake before dawn, the airfield cloaked in a chilly mist that clings to your flight suit like a damp handshake. The squadron's buzzing with quiet urgency, everyone moving in the half-light like ghosts with a purpose. You're prepping for a dawn patrol, and the pre-flight routine's a ritual that's equal parts habit and superstition. Your Spitfire sits on the tarmac, its sleek lines barely visible in the fog, dew beading on its wings. You circle it, hands brushing the cold metal, checking for anything a loose rivet, a nick in the propeller that could spell disaster at 20,000 feet. Your breath catches. You're not just inspecting a plane, you're entrusting it with your life. The ground crew's already at work, their faces smudged with grease, tools clinking as they tweak the engine. You nod to them, grateful, but there's no time for chit-chat. Your checklist's mental but meticulous. Fuel, oil, flaps, guns. You tug at your parachute straps, the canvas heavy on your shoulders, and adjust your life vest. Nobody mentions the odds of surviving a channel ditching, but you know they're grim. Your oxygen mask dangles, its rubbery smell familiar now, and you slip that photo of your sweetheart into your pocket, right where it's been since that first chaotic flight. Remember that cockpit? It's waiting for you again. A mainstream fact. Pre-flight checks were critical in World War II, as a single mechanical fault could doom a pilot. Over 10% of RAF losses were due to equipment failure, not enemy fire. You're obsessive about it, double-checking the ailerons, running your fingers along the canopy's edge. A loose screw's not just a nuisance, it's a one-way ticket to a smoking crater. You're not paranoid, just practical. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots carried bizarre good luck charms, like a lock of hair, or a pebble from their hometown beach. Rumor has it one guy flew with a stuffed squirrel named Reggie. You stick to your photo, but you get the urge to clutch it like a talisman. Historians still argue whether pre-flight nerves helped pilots focus, or just frayed their sanity. Did the rituals ground you, or wind you up tighter? You're leaning toward the latter as you climb into the cockpit, the seat creaking under you. The instruments stare back, a maze of dials and switches you've memorized but still distrust. You flick the ignition, and the Merlin engine coughs, then roars, shaking your bones. The ground crew gives a thumbs up, and you return it, though your stomach's doing flips. Here we go again, you mutter, half to yourself, half to the plane. Your first joke of the day comes as you spot a rookie fumbling with his harness nearby. Mate, it's a strap, not a puzzle to knit yourself in. He grins, but you see the same fear in his eyes you feel in your gut. The second joke hits when you notice the ground crew chief wiping his hands on a rag that's dirtier than the plane. Blimey, you cleaning the Spitfire or just spreading the love? He chuckles, and it eases the tension for a second. The third joke's for Spit. The squadron's terrier mascot, remember him from the mess hall? He's yapping at your plane like it's an intruder. Spit, mate. If you want to fly, get your own wings, you call, and a nearby mechanic snorts. You taxi to the runway, the plane bouncing over ruts. The tower's voice crackles in your headset, giving clearance. You're not thinking about glory or medals, just getting up and back down in one piece. The sky's lightening, a pale pink streak on the horizon, but it's no postcard. Somewhere out there, the Luftwaffe's waiting, and your hands are sweaty on the stick. You glance at the mirror taped to your panel. That quirky trick from your first flight. And it's clear now, reflecting nothing but clouds. You're ready, or as ready as you'll ever be. The runway stretches ahead, and you push the throttle. The world blurs, and you're off, climbing into the dawn, chasing that shadow you saw before. You're airborne now, the Spitfire slicing through the sky like a knife through silk, the roar of the Merlin engine filling your ears. You're at 20,000 feet, the English Channel glinting below, a patchwork of silver and shadow. It's a dogfight day, and you're hunting Messerschmitts. Your squadron spread out in a loose formation, wings glinting in the morning sun. The air's thin, your oxygen mask hissing as you breathe, and the cold seeps through your flight suit, numbing your fingers. You scan the horizon, eyes darting, searching for that telltale specker German fighter ready to turn this patrol into a deadly dance. Your heart's a metronome, steady but fast, and you grip the stick like it's the only thing tethering you to the world. The radio crackles, your flight leader's voice cutting through. Bandits, 2 o'clock high. You spot them 3 Messerschmitt Bf 109s, their yellow noses catching the light. You bank hard, the plane rolling smoothly, G-forces pressing you into the seat like a giant's hand. The dogfight's a ballet, chaotic and precise, where one wrong step means curtains. You dive, chasing the lead 109, its tail in your sights. Your thumb hovers over the gun button, 8 machine guns ready to spit fire. You're not thinking about heroics, just angles and speed geometry with a body count. A mainstream fact, dogfights were the crucible of the air war, with the RAF and Luftwaffe Losing thousands of planes in 1940 to 42, the Spitfire's maneuverability often tipping the scales. You feel that now, the plane responding like an extension of your will, turning tighter than the 109 can manage. You fire a burst, the gun's chatter vibrating through the cockpit, but the enemy jinks left, dodging your shots. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots claimed they could smell a dogfight coming, a mix of adrenaline and instinct like you, right now, catching a whiff of oil and cordite as the fight heats up. Historians still argue whether pilot skill or aircraft design won more dogfights. Did your Spitfire's wings outshine your reflexes, or is it all you? You're in the thick of it now, the sky a whirl of planes and tracer fire. And 109 screams past, so close you see the pilot's goggles. You roll right, pulling up to avoid his wingman, your stomach lurching as the horizon flips. "Stay sharp, kid," you mutter, echoing Tom from the squadron mess remember those laughs over tea. You're not laughing now. Your first joke slips out anyway, a reflex. This guy flies like he's dodging his mum's cooking. It's just you in the cockpit, but it keeps your nerves steady. You spot another 109 climbing, and you follow, the engine screaming as you push it to the limit. Your second joke comes when you notice your mirror yep, that taped-on shard from your first flight rattling loose. Great, now my luck's falling apart too. The fight's a blur, seconds stretching into eternity. You fire again, and this time, black smoke trails from the 109's engine. It spirals down, and you feel a jolt, not joy, but relief. You're still alive. Your third joke's grim as you bank away. Hope his parachute's better than his aim. The radio's alive, with shouts your squadron's holding its own, but you've lost sight of Tom. You scan frantically, clouds and smoke blurring the view. Another 109 dives at you, guns blazing, and you barrel roll, heart in your throat. The Spitfire's nimble, but so's the enemy, and you're both dancing on a knife's edge. You break left, then climb, using the clouds for cover. Your training kicks in those spins and stalls from flight school, remember? And you outmaneuver the 109, swinging behind it. One more burst, and it's limping away, trailing oil. The fight's thinning out, the sky emptying as the Germans peel off. You're sweating, your mask fogged, but you're still here. The channel sparkles below, indifferent to the chaos above. You check your fuel gauge low, but enough to get home. The dogfight's over, but the adrenaline's still pumping, and you know you'll be reliving this dance in your dreams, or nightmares. You're still up there, cruising at 15,000 feet, the dogfight's chaos behind you, but the sky's no less treacherous. Clouds loom like grey mountains, and rain streaks your canopy, blurring the world outside. You're navigating now, trying to get your squadron back to base, but the weather's turning sour, and your instruments are about as reliable as a pub rumour. The compass needle wobbles, the altimeter's sluggish, and your fuel gauge is dipping faster than you'd like. You're alone in the cockpit, the hum of the Merlin engine, your only companion, and you're squinting at the starcer where they should be through gaps in the storm. This is navigation, 1942 style, part science, part guesswork, part prayer. You're plotting your course by dead reckoning, a fancy term for educated guessing. You've got a map strapped to your knee, creased and smudged, with pencil marks showing your last known position. The stars, when you can see them, are your guide, but the clouds keep swallowing them. You tilt your head, straining to spot Orion's belt, a trick you learned back in flight school. Remember those grueling nights? Your radio's spitting static, the tower's voice faint, like they're shouting from another planet. You adjust your headset, the leather earpieces chafing, and try to focus. One wrong turn, and you're over France, not England, and that's a one-way ticket to a POW camp. A mainstream fact, navigation in World War II relied heavily on celestial navigation and basic instruments, with RAF pilots often getting lost in bad weather. Hundreds crashed due to disorientation. You're feeling that risk now, the horizon tilting as gusts buffet your Spitfire. Your hands dance across the controls, keeping the plane steady, but it's like wrestling a kite in a gale. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots swore by carrying a pocket watch set to Greenwich time, claiming it helped them sync with the stars better than the plane's clock. You've got one, a cheap thing your dad gave you, ticking away in your pocket next to that sweetheart's photo from your first flight. It's not much, but it's a comfort. Historians still argue whether navigational errors cost more lives than enemy-fired pilots like you die more from getting lost or getting shot. You're not keen to add to either statistic. You check your airspeed, 200 knots, and try to calculate your drift, but the math's fuzzy in your head. The storm's thickening, rain drumming on the canopy like impatient fingers. You joke to yourself, "If I crash, at least I'll get a bath." It's weak, but it keeps the panic at bay. Your second joke comes when you spot a flicker of lightning. Great, now the sky's throwing fireworks at me. You chuckle, but your grip tightens on the stick. You try the radio again, calling for a bearing, but it's just garbled noise. You're flying blind, trusting your gut and that wobbly compass. You dip below the clouds, hoping for a glimpse of coastline, but it's just endless grey. Your third joke's for Spit. The squadron's terrier, remember him stealing that sausage? Spit, mate, you'd sniff your way home better than this compass. The thought makes you smile, but it fades fast. Fuel's low, and the engine's starting to stutter. You spot a break in the clouds and catch a glint of water the channel, maybe? You bank gently, praying it's England's shore, not France's. You recall Tom's advice from the mess hall. Trust your plane, not your panic. You lean into that, adjusting your course by feel, the Spitfire's vibrations telling you more than the gauges. A faint light blinks below a beacon, or just a farmer's lantern. You take the gamble and descend, the altimeter creeping down to 5,000 feet. The storm's easing, and you spot a familiar river bend. Relief floods you, you're close to base. The runway's out there, waiting, and so's that cramped cockpit you've called home since dawn. You're not safe yet, but you're closer, and that's enough for now. You're back on the ground, the Spitfire's wheels kissing the tarmac with a jolt that rattles your teeth. The airfield's a hive of activity, even in the dim evening light, and you taxi toward the hangar, engine growling like it's as tired as you are. You cut the power, and the propeller slows, ticking like a cooling clock. You're not in the air anymore, but your survival depends on the unsung heroes around you, the ground crew. These are the mechanics, armourers, and fitters who keep your plane from falling apart mid-flight. You climb out, legs wobbly, and a grizzled crew chief named Alf tosses you a cigarette. You take it, even though you don't smoke, just to feel human again. The hangar smells of oil, metal, and sweat, a sharp contrast to the crisp sky you just left. The crew's already swarming your Spitfire, tools clanking as they check for damage from that dogfight. Remember that dance with the Messerschmitts? Bullet holes pepper the wing, and Alf curses under his breath, muttering about Bloody Jerry's aim. These guys work through the night, patching, tuning, and reloading your guns, their hands moving with a precision that rivals your flying. You're exhausted, but they're relentless, fueled by tea and sheer stubbornness. Without them, you'd be a sitting duck. A mainstream fact, ground crews were the backbone of the RAF, maintaining over 7,000 aircraft by 1942, often under blackout conditions to avoid Luftwaffe raids. Their work was grueling 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer, with no room for error. You watch Alf tighten a bolt, his fingers nimble despite the cold. A quirky tidbit. Some mechanics painted tiny caricatures of Hitler on engine cowlings, claiming it gave the planes extra spit. You spot one on your Spitfire, a cartoonish mustache smudged with grease, and it makes you grin. Historians still argue whether ground crew efficiency or pilot skill was the real key to RAF victories. Did Alf's wrench save you more than your reflexes? You lean against a crate, watching the crew swarm like ants. Your first joke slips out as Alf wrestles a jammed ammo belt. Mate, you fighting the plane or the war? He snorts, tossing you a rag to wipe your hands. The second joke comes when you see a rookie mechanic drop a wrench into the engine bay. Hope you're not planning to fly that in there. The crew laughs. but you feel the weight of their work. Every bolt they tighten is a second chance for you. You're not just a pilot. You're part of their machine, and they're part of yours. The night's closing in, and the airfield's lit by dim lanterns to dodge enemy bombers. You chat with the crew, learning their tricks, like how they mix fuel by feel when gauges fail, or how they listen to the engine's hum for clues. Your third joke's for a fitter who's cursing a stubborn spark plug. What? You sweet, talking it, or just swearing it into submission? He flips you off, but there's a smile. These moments ground you, a reminder of the team behind your solo flights. You think back to that stormy navigation, remember that wobbly compass? The crew's the reason you landed at all. You linger, watching them work under flickering lights. Alf hands you a mug of tea, scalding and bitter, but it's the best thing you've tasted all day. You talk about home, his kids, your mum's cooking, and for a moment, the war feels far away. But it's not. The siren could wail any second, and you'll be back in that cockpit, trusting Alf's patches to hold. You pat the Spitfire's nose, that cartoon Hitler staring back, and head to the mess hall. The crew stays, their work never done, and you carry their effort with you, heavier than that photo in your pocket. You're slumped in the mess hall, the air thick with the smell of boiled cabbage and cigarette smoke, your flight suit still damp from the morning's patrol. The squadrons around you, some laughing, some staring into their plates like they're reading tea leaves. Dinner's a grim, afforationed food that's more punishment than nourishment. You poke at a lump of something called stew, grey and gluey, and wonder if it's potato or despair. Your plate's got a sliver of spam, a scoop of powdered eggs, and bread so stale it could double as a weapon. You're hungry, but not desperate enough to enjoy this. The war's rationing has stripped England bare, and you're feeling it in your empty stomach. You sip tea that tastes like dishwater, the mug warm against your hands. The mess hall's noisy clinking cutlery, low chatter, and the occasional burst of laughter from a table of veterans reliving a dogfight. You're still wired from that dance with the Messerschmitts, remember those tracer rounds zipping past? But here, you're just another pilot, trying to choke down a meal while pretending it's normal. The rationing's a shared misery, binding you to the ground crew. The cooks, even Spit the terrier, who's eyeing your spam like it's a steak. A mainstream fact. Britain's wartime rationing, starting in 1940, limited food to bare essentials, with pilots getting slightly better rations about 0 calories daily, but still facing shortages of meat and sugar. You're grateful for the extra calories, but better is relative when your dessert's a biscuit that crumbles like sawdust. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots smuggled chocolate from home, hiding it in their flight kits, like contrabando guy in your squadron swears he traded a Hershey bar for a mechanic's best wrench. You've got no chocolate, just that photo of your sweetheart tucked in your pocket, a reminder of better meals and better days. Historians still argue whether rationing built camaraderie, or just resentment. Did shared hunger make you closer, or just crankier? You lean toward cranky as you stab at the stew. Your first joke comes when a rookie complains about the eggs. Mate, these aren't eggs, they're the cook's revenge. The table chuckles, and it loosens the mood. Your second joke hits as you catch Spit the terrier rep, that sausage thief from the mess hall sniffing under your chair. Spit, if you eat this, you're braver than me. The lads laugh, and even the rookie grins. You're learning to lean on humour, a trick from those squadron nights, to keep the darkness at bay. The food's bad, but the stories are worse. A veteran across the table talks about a mate who ditched in the channel, surviving on seaweed for 2 days. You listen, chewing slowly, wondering if you'd have the guts to do the same. You dream of your mum's roast, gravy thick enough to drown in, but it's a distant memory. Your third joke's a desperate one as you push your plate away. If the Luftwaffe drops spam instead of bombs, we're done for. It gets a groan, but it's worth it. You sip your tea, thinking about the ground crew. Remember Alf's greasy hands, who eat even worse than you. They're still out there, fixing your Spitfire while you gripe about dinner. You glance around the mess hall. The faces a mix of exhaustion, and defiance. Rationings stripped away comforts, but not spirit. You swap a cigarette for a bite of someone's smuggled jam, a rare treat that tastes like victory. The war's everywhere in the food, the talk, the empty chair's butt, so's the fight to keep going. You finish your tea, the mug cold now, and head to your bunk. Tomorrow's another mission, another chance to face the sky. That cockpit's calling, the one with the taped-on mirror and the hum of the Merlin. You're not full, but you're fueled enough to keep flying. You're hunched over in the cockpit, the familiar rumble of the Spitfire's engine vibrating through your bones as you cruise at 10,000 feet. The sky's clear for once, stars prickling the darkness, but the radio in your headset is a lifeline and a curse. It's spitting static, a hissing mess that makes every word sound like it's been chewed up and spat out. You're on a routine escort mission, guarding a squadron of bombers lumbering toward a German target. Your job's simple. Keep the Luftwaffe off their backs. But the radio's your only link to the world your squadron. The tower, the bomber sand right now. It's about as useful as a paperweight. You tap the headset, willing it to clear, and mutter a curse under your breath. The radio's a lifeline, sure, but it's also a puzzle. Coded orders come through in clipped bursts phrases like Angels 20 for altitude, or Bandits at 6 for enemies behind. You've memorized the codes, drilled in flight school, remember those endless nights? But static garbles everything, and you're straining to catch the flight leader's voice. Is that Tom? Or just noise? You adjust the dial, the headset's leather digging into your ears, and catch a fragment. Bogies, 3 o'clock. Your eyes snap right, scanning for the glint of enemy wings. Nothing yet, but your pulse kicks up a notch. A mainstream fact. Radio communication was critical in World War II, with the RAF's TR-9 radio sets enabling real-time coordination, though their range was limited to about 30 miles in ideal conditions. You're not in ideal conditions, clouds are creeping in, and the static's worse than ever. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots claimed they could feel when a radio call was urgent, like a sixth sense for trouble. One guy in your squadron swears he heard his mum's voice once, warning him to dive. You haven't had ghostly calls yet, but you're clutching that sweetheart's photo in your pocket, hoping it's enough luck. Historians still argue whether poor radio tech cost more missions than bad tactics. Did garbled orders doom more pilots than enemy guns? You key the mic, your voice calm despite the jitters. Blue 2. Confirm bandits. Static answers, then Tom's voice, faint but sharp. Hold tight, kid. You smirk. Tom's still quoting Shakespeare in the mess hall, but up here, he's all business. Your first joke slips out, a whisper to yourself. If this radio quits, I'll just shout at the Germans. It's dumb, but it steadies you. You adjust your course, staying tight with the bombers, their droning shapes just visible below. The radio crackles again, a jumble of code words, and you piece together the order, climb to 15,000, watch for fighters. You pull back on the stick, the Spitfire climbing smoothly, the stars tilting above. Your second joke comes when you notice your taped-on mirror. Yep, that dogfight trick reflecting nothing but clouds. Great, my mirror's as useless as this radio. You chuckle, but it's tense. The bombers are vulnerable, and you're their shield. Another burst of static, and you catch Messerschmitts. High, your eyes dart upward, spotting specks against the stars. You bank hard, the G-forces pinning you, and key the mic again. Blue 2, engaging. No response, just static. Your third joke's grim, as you spot the enemy's yellow noses. Hope they're better at talking than shooting. You're in it now, the radio's hiss fading, as instinct takes over. You dive toward the Messerschmitts, guns ready, the bomber's safety on your shoulders. The radio's useless, but you're not alone. Your squadron's out there, somewhere in the static. You think of Alf's greasy hands patching your plane, the ground crew's work keeping you aloft. The fight's coming, and you're ready, or as ready as you'll ever be. That cockpit chaos from your first flight is back, the Merlin's roar drowning out the static, and you're dancing with the enemy again, guided by nothing but skill and a crackling voice. You're back in the cockpit, the Spitfire shuddering as you pull out of a steep dive, the sky a swirl of smoke and tracer fire. Your dogfight with the Messerschmitts, remember that deadly ballet? Left your plane battered. A bullet hole punched through the wing and a worrying rattle in the engine. You're limping home, the Channel's grey expanse below, but your Spitfire's not cooperating. The stick's sluggish, the rudder's sticking, and a faint smell of burning oil stings your nose. You're no mechanic, but you've got to keep this bird flying, or you're swimming with the fishes. It's time for mid-air repairs, or at least the closest thing a pilot like you can manage re-rigging under pressure. The instrument panel's a mess, the oil pressure gauge flickering like it's got a mind of its own. You tap it, hoping it's just a glitch. But the needle doesn't budge. Your training from flight school, those spins and stalls didn't cover this, but you've heard stories of pilots coaxing damaged planes home with sheer willpower. You check your altitude, 8,000 feet, low enough to feel the seas chill through the canopy. The radio's dead now, that static-filled lifeline from the last mission finally giving up. You're alone, just you, the plane, and that sweetheart's photo in your pocket, which feels heavier than ever. A mainstream fact. RAF pilots often had to improvise repairs mid-flight, with over 20% of Spitfires returning from missions in 1942, showing battle damage that required immediate fixes. You're living that statistic, your hands fumbling with the controls, trying to compensate for the sluggish rudder. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots carried pocket knives to cut jammed cables or tape to patch minor leak zone guy in your squadron bragged about fixing a fuel line with a chewed-up pencil. You've got no pencil, but you've got grit. You ease the throttle, nursing the engine, and pray Alf's ground crew magic, remember his greasy hands, holds up. Historians still argue whether pilot ingenuity or sheer luck saved more damaged planes did. Your quick thinking matter more than chance? You're betting on thinking as you notice the ailerons not responding right. You lean into the turn, using your body weight like you're riding a bike, and it helps, barely. Your first joke's a mutter. If I crash, at least I'll save on fuel. It's dark, but it keeps your hands steady. You check the mirror, yep, that taped-on shard from your first flight, and it's cracked now, reflecting a distorted sky. Figures, you say. Your second joke. Even my luck's got a hole in it. You experiment, easing the stick forward, then back, feeling the plane's response. The engine coughs, and you throttle down, coaxing it like a stubborn horse. You're losing altitude, down to 5,000 feet, but you spot a coastline England, you hope, not France. You think of the ground crew's cartoon Hitler on your plane's nose, a silly charm that feels like a lifeline now. Your third joke's for them. Alf, if I land this, you're getting my spam ration. You chuckle, but it's hollow. You adjust the flaps manually, the lever stiff, and the plane stabilizes lightly. It's not pretty, but it's flying. The airfield's out there, somewhere in the dusk. You're navigating by gut now, that stormy night's dead reckoning coming back to haunt you. The engine's still rattling, but it's holding, and you're holding too barely. You glance at the photo in your pocket, not daring to pull it out, and whisper a promise to get home. The runway's a faint strip in the distance, and you line up, praying the landing gear doesn't collapse. You're not out of this yet, but you're fighting, just like you did in that dogfight, with nothing but skill and a battered Spitfire to carry you through. You're back in the air, but it's no glorious dogfight this time, just you, the Spitfire, and a moonless night that feels like flying inside a coal sack. Night operations are a different beast, the kind that make your palms sweat and your eyes strain for any hint of light. You're on a defensive patrol, guarding the English coast from Luftwaffe bombers sneaking through the dark. The skies are void, stars hidden by clouds, and the only sounds are the Merlin engine's drone and your own breathing, loud inside your oxygen mask. Flak bursts bloom in the distance, orange flashes that light up nothing but your nerves. You're flying blind, and every instinct screams to turn back, but there's no turning back in 1942. Your instruments glow faintly. The dial's your only guide in this inky mess. The altimeter says 12,000 feet, but but it feels like you're floating in nothing. You've got a flashlight strapped to your knee, its beam weak and jittery as you check your map. Navigation's a nightmare, remember that stormy flight with the wobbly compass. This is worse. You're relying on radar reports from the ground, crackling through your headset, but they're vague. Bogies, north-northeast, range uncertain. You squint into the darkness, searching for the glint of an exhaust or the shadow of a Heinkel bomber. Your fingers twitch on the stick, ready for a fight you can't see coming. A mainstream fact. Night operations were critical in World War II, with the RAF's night fighters intercepting over 1,000 German bombers by 1943, though losses were high due to poor visibility and primitive radar. You feel that risk now, the blackness pressing in like a living thing. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots taped glow in the dark paint to their instrument panels, swearing it helped them see better. One guy in your squadron tried it and ended up with a glowing mustache after a mishap. You're sticking with your flashlight, but it's barely cutting through the gloom. Historians still argue whether night fighting was more about bravery or blind. Luck did skill keep you alive, or was it just dodging the odds? You adjust your course, following a faint radio bearing, the static in your headset a familiar annoyance from that escort mission. Your first joke's a whisper. If I crash, at least no one will see it. It's grim, but it keeps your heart from racing too fast. You spot a flicker flak or an enemy exhaust, and bank gently, the Spitfire tilting like a dream. Your second joke comes as you fumble with the flashlight, its beam wobbling. Great, my light's drunker than Tom after a pint. You smirk, thinking of Tom's Shakespeare quotes in the mess hall, but the humour fades fast. The radio crackles again, a garbled warning about bandits at your altitude. You tense, scanning the void, your eyes burning from the strain. A sudden burst of flak lights up the sky, and you jerk the stick, dodging the shrapnel. Your third joke's for Spit, the terrier, who'd be barking his head off if he were here. Spit, mate, you'd hate this no sausages in the dark. The thought of that scruffy dog grounds you, a callback to those mess hall nights. You're not sure if you're over England or the Channel, but you keep flying, trusting the plane Alf's crew patched up. The engine's steady, despite that rattle from your last mission, and you're grateful for their work. A faint glow appears below a friendly beacon, maybe. And you adjust course, praying it's home. The night's relentless, but so are you. You're not chasing aces or glory, just survival, one dark mile at a time. The cockpit's your world, that taped-on mirror useless in the blackness, but you feel the weight of that sweetheart's photo, a quiet promise to make it back. The flak's quieter now, the radio still hissing, and you're holding steady, flying through the dark toward a runway you can't yet see. You're back on the ground, the airfield quiet except for the distant hum of a generator and the soft patter of rain on the barracks roof. It's late, the kind of late where the world feels like it's holding its breath. You're in your bunk, a scratchy blanket pulled to your chin, and you're writing a letter home. The pencil's stubby, the paper's thin, and your handwriting's a mess from exhaustion and the cold seeping through the hut's walls. You're not flying now, no dogfights, no stormy navigation, but the war's still with you, heavy as the photo of your sweetheart tucked in your flight jacket. This letter's for your family, maybe your mum or your kid sister, and every word feels like a gamble. Will you make it back to read their reply? The hut's dim, lit by a single bulb that flickers like it's got one foot in the grave. Your bunkmate's snoring, and Spit the terrier, remember that sausage thief, is curled up by the door, twitching in his sleep. You write about the little things, the lousy food, the way the sky looks at dawn, how Tom quoted Hamlet again in the mess hall. You don't mention the bullet holes in your Spitfire or the mates who didn't come back. Your family doesn't need that weight. But you feel it, every syllable, a quiet plea to stay connected to a life that feels further away each mission. A mainstream fact, letter writing was a lifeline for WW2 pilots, with millions of letters sent home through the RAF's postal system, often censored to hide operational details. You're careful, sticking to vague phrases like keeping busy to dodge the censor's pen. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots slipped coded messages into their letters, using pet names or odd phrases to signal they were okay. One guy in your squadron calls his mum Auntie Spitfire to mean he's still flying. You don't bother with codes. You just want your mum to know you're eating barely and sleeping sometimes. Historians still argue whether these letters boosted morale or just deepened homesickness. Did writing keep you grounded or make you ache for home? Your pencil scratches out a line about the weather damp, always dampened you pause, staring at the paper. Your first joke's for your sister. Tell mum her stew's better than RAF slop, but don't expect an invite. You smile, imagining her laugh, but it fades fast. The second joke's darker as you glance at Spit. If I don't make it, give this mutt my ration, she's earned 'em. You don't write that one down, but it lingers. The act of writing's a ritual, like checking your plane before a mission. Remember those pre-flight jitters? It's a way to feel human, to anchor yourself to a world beyond the cockpit. You mentioned the ground crew, how Alf's hands keep your plane alive, but you don't say how close you came to not landing. Your third joke's a scribble in the margin. If the Luftwaffe drops biscuits, I'm switching sides. It's silly, but it keeps your hand moving. You're not sure if this letter will reach home before your next mission, or if you'll be around to send another. The thought's a shadow, like that Messerschmitt in your first dogfight, always lurking. You fold the paper, seal it, and tuck it under your pillow. The hut's quiet now, the rain, a soft drone, like the fan you might have turned on for this story's sleepy vibe. You lie back, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the war pressing down. Writing's done for tonight, but the words linger, promises, jokes, hopes you might not keep. Tomorrow's another flight, another chance to face the sky. That cockpit's waiting, with its taped-on mirror and Alf's cartoon Hitler on the nose. You close your eyes, the letter's words echoing, a fragile thread to home as you drift towards sleep. You're soaring again, the Spitfire's engine humming as you cut through a crisp morning sky, the English countryside a patchwork of green and brown below. You're not chasing Messerschmitts today, but there's a different kind of pressure. Everyone's talking about becoming an ace, a pilot with 5 confirmed kills. It's 1,942, and the term's a badge of honor, whispered in the mess hall like a sacred goal. Your squadron's scoreboard is scratched on a chalkboard in the briefing room. Tom's got 7, a cocky Canadian has 6, and you? You've got 2, maybe 3, depending on whether that smoking 109 from the dogfight, remember that deadly dance, gets confirmed. You're not obsessed, but the idea's there, nagging like a loose rivet in your mind. The air's clear, your oxygen mask hissing softly, and you're on a routine patrol, eyes scanning for trouble. Being an ace isn't just about kills, it's about survival, outsmarting the enemy while staying in one piece. You check your gun sights, the crosshairs steady, and adjust your goggles, the same ones you wore in that first chaotic cockpit. The tally's a game, but a grim one. Every kill is a plane down, a pilot gone, and you're not sure how to feel about it. You're not bloodthirsty, just doing your job, but the scoreboard's a siren call, tempting you to take risks. A mainstream fact. RAF aces were rare, with only about 5% of pilots achieving 5 or more kills, and top aces like Douglas Bader racked up over 20 by war's end. You're no Bader, but you're learning. Each mission sharpening your instincts. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots painted their kill marks on their plane's little swastikas or crosses, but one guy in your squadron carved tiny notches into his cockpit's wood, claiming it kept the plane honest. You haven't marked yours yet. That cartoon Hitler on the nose, courtesy of Alf's ground crew, feels like enough decoration for now. Historians still argue whether the ACE system boosted morale or pushed pilots into reckless heroics. Did the chase for kills save the RAF or cost it dearly? You spot a speck at 10 o'clock, your heart kicking up. You bank gently, the Spitfire tilting like a bird, and squint through the canopy. It's a friendly hurricane, not a foe, and you relax, but only slightly. Your first joke's a mutter. If I shoot down a cloud, does that count? It's weak, but it steadies your nerves. The radio crackles Tom's voice, calling the patrol clear and you stay in formation. Wings glinting in the sun. Your second joke comes as you glance at your taped-on mirror, still cracked from that mid-air repair. This thing's seen more action than I have. You smirk, but the ace dream lingers. A mix of pride and dread. You've seen what chasing kills does. A mate went after a sixth, got cocky, and didn't come back. You're cautious, but the thought of 5 kills off being somebody tugs at you. Your third joke's for Spit, the terrier, who'd be yapping at the clouds if he were here. Spit, you'd make ace before me, you've got no fear. The memory of that scruffy dog in the mess hall softens the tension. You're not chasing glory today, just staying alive, but every mission's a chance to inch closer to that magic number. You check your fuel, your gauges, your cracked mirror, and keep flying, the scoreboard a shadow in your mind. The patrol's quiet, but you know the sky's never safe. You think of your letter home, the one under your pillow, and wonder if you'd mention being an ace if you got there. Probably not. Your mum doesn't need to know about kills, just that you're coming back. The airfield's waiting below, Alf's crew ready to patch your plane, and you're one flight closer to whatever comes next. Ace or not, you're still in the fight. You're aloft again, the Spitfire's wings slicing through a sky that's turned traitor. Thick fog blankets the world below, and ice crystals creep across your canopy, glinting like tiny knives in the weak sunlight. You're on a high-altitude patrol, 25,000 feet up, where the air's so thin your oxygen mask feels like a lifeline. The weather's your enemy today, not the Luftwaffe, and it's a brutal foe. Your breath fogs the mask, the cold bites through your flight suit, and your fingers ache on the stick. You're fighting to keep your plane steady, praying the wings don't ice up and send you into a spin. This is flying at its worst. Nature doesn't care about your training or your sweetheart's photo in your pocket. The instruments are your only friends, but they're fickle. The altimeter's sluggish, the artificial horizon wobbling as gusts buffet the plane. You've been here before, remember that stormy navigation, the wobbly compass? This is uglier. Ice on the wings adds weight, dragging you down, and you can't see the horizon to orient yourself. You tap the de-icing lever, hoping the system Alf's ground crew patch those greasy handholds up. The Merlin engine hums, but it's straining, the cold sapping its power. You're alone, the radio quiet except for faint static, a ghost of those crackling orders from your escort mission. A mainstream fact: weather-related crashes killed hundreds of RAF pilots, with icing and fog causing nearly 15% of non-combat losses in 1942. You're living that statistic, your eyes darting between the gauges and the frosted canopy. A quirky tidbit: some pilots swore by rubbing whiskey on the canopy to prevent icing useless, but it made for a good story in the mess hall. You've got no whiskey, just your wits and a cracked mirror. Yep, that dogfight relic reflecting nothing but grey. Historians still argue whether weather or enemy fire was the greater threat. Did fog like this kill more pilots than Messerschmitts? You ease the throttle, descending slightly to find warmer air, but the fog's relentless. Your first joke's a mutter: "If I crash now, I'll just call it a snow day." It's feeble, but it keeps your hands from shaking. You scrape at the canopy with your glove, clearing a patch to peer through, but it's just more haze. Your second joke comes as the engine coughs, a brief stutter. Great, now my plane's catching a cold. You smirk, thinking of Spit the terrier sneezing in the barracks. The icer's working barely and you feel the wings lighten. But the fog's still a wall, and you're navigating by instinct, a skill honed in that stormy night flight. The radio crackles, a faint voice from the tower, urging you to divert to a clearer airfield. You acknowledge, but it's a gamble. Fuel's low, and you're not sure where clearer is. Your third joke's for Alf's cartoon Hitler on the plane's nose. Mate, you're the only one enjoying this weather. It's grim, but it grounds you. You drop to 10,000 feet, the air warming slightly, and spot a break in the fogger glimpse of coastline. England, you hope. You bank gently, the Spitfire sluggish but obedient, and aim for the faint outline of a runway. Your training, your crew, your sheer stubbornness, they're all that's keeping you aloft. The fog thins as you descend, the runway lights winking like stars. You're not out of danger, but you're closer to home than you were. You think of your letter home, the one you wrote by candlelight, and promise yourself you'll add a line about surviving this. The cockpit's still cold, the mirror still cracked, but you're flying, and that's enough. You line up for landing, the fog a lingering threat, but the ground's calling, and you're ready to answer. Section 15. You're on the ground, the war's final month stretching out like a long, weary sigh. It's 1945, and the airfield's quieter now. The frantic scrambles of 1942, a fading echo. Your Spitfire's parked in the hangar, its nose still sporting Alf's cartoon Hitler, though the paint's chipped and faded like your own resolve. You're leaning against a crate, staring at the chalkboard in the briefing room, names of pilots crossed out, too many to count. The Luftwaffe's on its knees, but victory's not sweet. It's heavy, laced with the faces of mates who didn't make it. You're reflecting now, not on dogfights or aces, remember that chase for 5 kills? But on the cost, the empty bunks, the letters you'll never answer. The airfield's bathed in dusk. The sky a soft purple, no longer a battlefield. You're older. Though it's only been a few years, your eyes carry the weight of every mission, from that first chaotic cockpit to the foggy nightmare you just survived. The mess hall's still got its bad tea and worse food, but the laughter's thinner, the chairs emptier. Spit the Terrier's still here, grey around the muzzle, sniffing at your boots like he knows you're carrying the war's ghosts. You pat him, thinking of the squadron's bonds, the ground crew's grit, the letters home that kept you sane. Each memory's a thread, frayed but unbroken. A mainstream fact. By 1945, the RAF had lost over 10,000 fighter pilots, with the Allies' air superiority paving the way for Day and Germany's surrender. You're one of the lucky ones, still breathing, still flying, but luck feels like a debt. A quirky tidbit. Some pilots kept souvenirs from their plane's bits of canopy, or spent casings as talismans of survival. You've got a piece of that cracked mirror from your first flight, tucked in your kit like a relic. Historians still argue whether the RAF sacrifices turned the tide, or were just a brutal necessity. Did your mates die for victory, or just to hold the line? You wander the airfield, boots crunching on gravel, passing Alf's crew as they tinker with a Spitfire that might not fly again. Your first joke's soft, for them. Alf. You fixing that or just petting it? He grins, but it's tired. Your second joke's for Spit, who's chasing his tail. Mate, you're the only one still fighting. It's bittersweet, like the war's end. You think of your last letter home, promising you'd return, and feel the weight of keeping that vow. Your third joke's for the sky itself, as you glance up. Thanks for not killing me, you moody old git. It's a whisper, but it feels right. The war's winding down, but the cost lingers. Friends gone, planes lost, youth spent. You're not an ace, never hit that magic 5, but you're alive, and that's its own kind of score. You sit on a bench, the evening air cool, and pull out that photo of your sweetheart. It's creased, faded, but still there, like you. The airfield's quiet, the Merlin engine's silent, and you're ready to go home, to a life you barely remember but desperately want. The world softens now, the airfield fading into a gentle blur as you lean back, the bench cool against your back. The sky's a deep velvet, stars peeking through like old friends, whispering peace. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of a distant breeze, carrying away the roar of engines, the crackle of radios, the weight of loss. You're not in the cockpit anymore, not chasing shadows or dodging flak. You're just you, resting, the war, a memory that's slipping like sand through your fingers. The letters, the laughter, Spit's yaps, they're all there, but quieter now, lulling you into calm. Close your eyes, let the night wrap you up, and drift. You've earned it.